Attention, listeners. Do you ever find yourself struggling to decide what to watch on a Saturday night when you're in the mood for horror? Or perhaps you're trying to round out your own horror film education. In either case, I'm sure you'll be able to make some great discoveries in my 10 by 10 horror watch list, featuring a breakdown of the 10 favorite horror movies from 10 renowned horror directors. We did a deep dive of the favorite horror movies from directors including Guillermo del Toro, Ari Aster, Jordan Peele, Quentin Tarantino, James Gunn, Rob Zombie, Martin Scorsese, and many, many more. Here you'll find a collection of each director's favorite horror movies, along with quotes about what they appreciated about the films, all in an easy-to-reference PDF that you can download absolutely free. Featuring a mix of well-worn classics and deep cuts, hopefully you'll discover some overlooked gems and look at old classics through new lenses. Download the 10 by 10 horror watch list for free by visiting nicktaylor.com/horror guide. That's nicktaylor.com/horror guide. Welcome back to the Nick Taylor Horror Show. As always, each episode of the Nick Taylor Horror Show explores how today's horror filmmakers are getting their movies made, while deconstructing their methods and career strategies into practical insights that you can use on your own horror filmmaking journey. This includes their creative processes, funding resources, favorite books and tools, key life lessons, and so much more. From Wellgo Entertainment, The Loneliest Boy in the World is billed as a modern fairy tale, except with zombies. When the sheltered and unsocialized Oliver is tasked with making new friends after the sudden death of his mother, he decides that digging up a few corpses might be his best bet. However, when he awakens the morning after his excavating escapades, he discovers that his newly acquired friends have mysteriously come to life overnight, launching them into a series of misadventures as they try to keep their secrets safe from neighbors, classmates, and social workers alike. So, I enjoyed this movie a whole lot. It was super charming, funny, and surprisingly tear-jerking. It has many metaphors about things like bullying, tolerance, accepting people who are different from you, and the notion of chosen family. And overall is a great example of mixing horror and heart, which I always enjoy. The movie could also be described as a family-friendly version of Idle Hands, and overall is a great recent example of modern gateway horror, which I don't think there is nearly enough of. Despite being rated R, which I don't understand, you can totally show this one to your kids, and I recommend you do. Also, the production design on this film is stellar, especially considering that they were on a budget. It has a strong visual nod to Edward Scissorhands, but is very much its own thing. It also has strong Hammer horror vibes, and overall is the kind of movie that looks like every single production design detail was agonized over. It's just visually beautiful. The screenplay for The Loneliest Boy in the World has been around since the 80s and somehow took decades to produce before landing in the hands of British director Martin Owen and his team. The movie also stars Max Harwood and hero Fiennes Tiffin, and we have them all here for you today. Without further ado, here is Martin Owen alongside Max Harwood and hero Fiennes Tiffin, director and stars of The Loneliest Boy in the World. You have that Statham sound a little bit, for sure.
Oh, it's nice.
Both do.
Yeah. You've got the gravel down as well. It's nice.
Podcast
I'll take it. Yeah.
It's really nice.
It just happens after a while.
I want it together. I think it'd be pretty sexy.
I think so too. We can read bedtime stories.
Yeah,
whatever. Well, guys, good to meet you all. Huge congratulations on the movie. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely very surprisingly heartfelt. And I like I was saying before we started, I feel like we grew up on a lot of the same stuff. Yeah. Reminded me of the stuff that got me into horror. I feel like this is like perfect gateway horror, of which there's not enough nowadays because it has so much heart. But it has the horror, it has the laughs. It felt like it came from a very personal place, though. Can you talk about the inception of the movie and kind of where it came from?
Yeah, absolutely. So the script was written in the 80s. So basically the script was conceived by Brad Wyman, Piers Ashworth, and Emilio Estevez, which in itself is cool. Because I personally buzz off Emilio Estevez, but that's just me. I'm going to topic straight away. So I read it, loved it, and it had this real authentic kind of like 80s feel. I said, wow, I thought I could write 80s stuff. And then I read that, I was like, I really can't. And then I realised it was actually from the 80s. So, and for me, it was just really interesting to have a story that's been around for so long, and the theme still felt relevant today. So to me, that was what was super kind of intriguing, I think. Very, very cool.
Yeah, it had a natural 80s vibe to it, which was like hard to recreate, but it also felt pretty modern. Yeah, for sure.
That's good.
Yeah. There felt like one of the vibes I got from it really seemed to thematically be about kind of treating people who are different with more compassion. Is that accurate? An accurate read into it to a certain degree?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And I think also, the crux of what it's about. I've kind of said a few times that it was actually Max who gave me the best answer for this. Was before we started shooting the film, we'd speak about like, what is the journey and this and this and this, and we were talking about it for a couple of weeks, and then Max just calls me one day and he's just like, "Do you know what this is?" I said, "What?" He's like, "This is a story about a kid grieving." That's what it's about.
You're welcome for the answer.
Thank you, Max.
Max has all the answers. Always.
Sometimes. But you're right. I don't know. It's interesting that you say about it having a little bit of a modern twist to it. I don't know where that comes from. I think that's probably to do with, a lot of like us sort of infusing our own experiences into it, and how maybe that strikes back to, how things reoccur in history, and we're definitely at a time, especially after the lockdown and the pandemic, where people are going through that sort of strange isolation thing.
I think it adds to the kind of like, it's just, I love how kind of wacky and all, like it's with the different accents and different, like you almost like don't know where it's set. Is it reality? Is it not? Is
right.
it like, the kind of like surreal, abstract nature of it really plays into the storyline, because it's obviously, you've got loads of dead people coming back to life and acting like normal people while deteriorated. You kind of need to create some sort of environment where we buy all this stuff and we don't have to question any of the laws of science and
Yeah, I noticed that. I noticed like you couldn't really, it wasn't really clear where the movie took place. Is like, is it in Europe? Is it in America? But it did have a kind of timeless and placelessness to it, which I thought was cool.
That was purposeful though, right? That was purposeful, right, man?
Yeah, it was. It was the idea was it was kind of this sort of slightly heightened reality in terms of like, it's definitely steeped in Americana, but on the same hand, we shot it in Wales in the UK, so it's kind of like there wasn't a point where I thought like this out and out, I need to make this look like a specific place in the US. It was just very much influenced by kind of the US and Americana, and all that kind of stuff is there, but there's also other things I wanted to bring into it. So it was just, as I said, the idea deliberately was this heightened reality where you couldn't quite pinpoint where it was.
Yeah.
But that used to happen in 80s movies. That used to happen quite a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
There'd be like made up places that kind of look like one place but felt like another.
They feel built, they feel unreal. So like, I suppose it could be literally wherever. And I think that they're, instead of more specifically referencing a place, you're more specifically referencing a period and also a type of movie, which is like, in our case, 80s genre films. For me, the way-in was like Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice, Johnny Depp, Winona Ryder, those actors. So it was more specifically geared to that than actually, where is this place? What is it real? Is it not real? So
it's in like 80s film world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Almost the like location and time is like.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It takes place in 80s film world, which is.
I feel like some films lean into being like films, and some films want to be completely original and normal. And I think it's quite clear what Martin's gone for and executed it.
Yeah. Was that it? That must have been intentional in terms of
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So what was What was the kind of media diet that you guys were put on to prepare for this movie? Did Martin...
The media diet?
Yeah.
Like, what things we're allowed to say?
Or, no, stuff that he wanted you guys to
listen
watch,
to,
like old references. Is there anything that you guys watched to just kind of get a sense of the tone of the movie?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I'll let these guys answer it, but I know certainly when we first spoke, when I mentioned Edward Scissorhands was a good reference, not just because of not necessarily just the style and the tone, it was more the fact of like those cross-genre horror movies from the 80s where it was like sort of, again, elevated, heightened reality, but you ultimately had a character with a very relatable journey and relatable plight at the centre of it, I think.
And a very unique, something that felt unique also, and, you know, tapping into something that's, you know, sort of otherworldly, unreal. And those productions, you know, talk a bit about production design, I guess, today, but a lot of that is from those sort of movies, I guess.
Yeah. Did you guys? Is there anything that you guys watched to prepare for this movie, or you just probably had Edward Scissorhands?
No, I went back and I really did. I did really rewatch that and look at everything that Johnny Depp did, and because you actually, as an actor, I find in terms of style, like the best way to like come up with a style reference is about looking at what lens it's coming through, and performance referencing is not a new thing for actors, but that performance was one that I was really like leaning towards like as a jump off. But like lots of other stuff, you know, we spoke this morning about movies like The Goonies and you know, young adventure fantasy films and stuff like that, so there was lots of new stuff that I hadn't seen and stuff that I had seen that I went back to rewatch that, you know, me and Martin spoke a lot about. And it was mainly tonally. I mean, the script was written in the 80s, so lots of the information for us was already in the script, and it was just about, especially for me, playing Oliver, it was about meeting the script with some form of truth, and then meeting the zombies and all of those people when they come to life on the set, and just being really reactionary in the world, basically, that was created by the team.
Yeah. So as far as that world was concerned, I'd love to talk about the character creation process for you both. I mean, I feel like with your character, we see him digging up corpses.
Yeah.
It was very easy.
So fun.
So fun. It looked like it was fun. I love that montage, the exhuming montage. But I feel like with a character like that, we see him doing these very creepy, questionable things, but he's still very lovable, and you're rooting for him the whole time. You know, I mean, your performance had a real pathos to it, you know, that I thought it very easily could have gone the other way, and it wouldn't have been as believable. You wouldn't have been rooting for him, you know. So much hinged on your performance. So I'm wondering how you were able to kind of crack that and be relatable and be sweet while still doing these very creepy things.
I think it's because I very quickly learned I wasn't making a drama.
Okay.
When I first read the script, I read it with that lens, and then when I came to Martin in our first meeting, I was asking him loads of questions that were kind of, you know, really relevant at the time for us to understand Oliver's world, but then it was the tones and the shifts and the references that really were like, oh, we're not making an out-and-out drama film, and I was able to, you know, lean into the comedy moments, and I think the light balances out the shade a little bit with this one. And I think it's like really perfectly, expertly executed by Martin and you know, the script. But yeah.
Every time Max talks about like when he first initially interpreted it as a bit more maybe like dramatic and a bit less comedic, keeps making me think how interesting it would be to do the same film but with like a really serious, then no comedy, and it's about a guy, and maybe the people don't even come to life. There's no magic, and it's literally like, and he's got to like hide them, and he's like really believing they're alive, and people are coming round, and you're there like, this kid is so twisted.
Netflix made that. It's called Dahmer.
Yeah.
Well, it seemed like you guys were all having so much fun on set. And obviously, you know, as a director, you want to have a fun and enjoyable set. But, I mean, particularly when you're not working with Marvel budgets, there's a lot that you do have to get done. You have to get your day done. So what was the environment like that you built on set? And how were you able to balance fun with, you know, getting the shots and making your day and all of that? Because everybody, you could tell the whole cast was enjoying the hell out of themselves.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting because we shot this during lockdown in the UK.
Yeah.
It was interesting because if we hadn't have all got on, I was saying to someone the other day, if there'd been even just like a couple of people who hadn't liked each other, or there'd been a weird atmosphere, it would have been a different movie.
Yeah.
Because we were all together all the time making this film, and we, you know, it wasn't necessarily that there was a system implemented. We were just very fortunate to have a really great cast and a really great crew. You know, that really, from my perspective, I'm only as good as the people around me.
Yeah.
You know, it's like playing football or something. You're only as good as your teammates.
Right.
You know?
I honestly think that's one of the kind of standout best traits about you as well, is that like I feel like there were times when we're playing with a scene and we got the time to explore different ways to do it, and you see back at Video Village or Martin looking at the monitor and there's probably like 10 people around, like a grip, and Martin's like, what do you think? And asking, like, getting everyone involved, and Max works with Ali and she's there, and everyone's opinion is taken on board and everyone's throwing stuff out there, and I think that freedom to really like collaborate and have everyone have an opinion no matter what department you're in really allows for that kind of, you know, enjoyable atmosphere. So.
That's really cool. And the sets, I mean, the whole production design was fantastic. There were some exterior night shots, which are notably difficult to do. They just looked gorgeous. They looked like they were out of, like, you know, an old, you know, Roger Corman Poe movie. Could you talk about the production design, both from a set building perspective, the colors, and also just working with the DP and getting some of those really cool kind of gothic, older, like Hammer style shots? Because the production design, I thought, was sensational.
Yeah, no, I think the whole the whole team production design, Jenny and the team did an amazing job, and I think that, you know, I had very clear vision from the start.
Yeah.
You know, the whole film was centered around Oliver's house, so Oliver's house was always going to be the constant. It's his safe place. It's the place that represents his backstory.
Right.
Because it's kind of like, it's as though the whole place is being dipped in aspic. It's kind of like a preserved museum. It was something, you know, Max and I spoke about early on as well. It's kind of like, it's set in the 80s, but it's got this 50s, 60s thing.
Stuck in time.
Yeah.
And then there's bits of 80s in there, you know, you got the Alf plush in there and everything. But for me, that was the most important thing, was getting the house right. And then the other one was the graveyard, the aesthetic of the graveyard, because the graveyard we saw it really early on. And
it was a nightmare to get down to that graveyard, wasn't it?
Everyone's like, you can't shoot there, Martin, you can't shoot there. And Matt, who's the producer, was like, look, I get that you like it, but it's really difficult to service because it was on the side of the hill.
Oh, wow.
In rainy Wales, where it's basically like mudslides almost.
They couldn't get all the kit down there. And one time it was flooded. Like it was
underwater.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
It was fully underwater. And so we looked at a bunch of other places, but nothing else worked for it. And I kind of wanted it to have this really sort of 80s Blue Moon kind of like genre look to it for those pieces. So in the end, I kind of got my way and we shot there. And how nobody kind of broke a leg or something is, to be honest, it's a miracle.
Yeah,
it was so like dangerous and treacherous to shoot there, but it looked great. And I think that Hovard, who's my cinematographer, I think, you know, I'm his biggest fan. We've worked together for a few years now, and, you know, he's one of my closest friends, but he's just so talented. What he can do, and his ability to kind of give things a quality, if that makes sense, and soften the lights so they don't look really hard and really harsh, which can sometimes make a film, you know, independent film particularly, look cheap. I sometimes think it's very difficult to get that right, but he has such a great comprehension of that stuff that, you know, really, again, it's the same thing. You know, I'm only as good as the sum of my parts. Right. Simple as that. It's nothing to do with me. That's him and his flair and his team and our camera operator James. You know, all those guys coming together to do an amazing job and create a consistent aesthetic, I think.
Yeah. Well, it looked fantastic. I mean, it really, really looked cool. Yeah. It kind of blows my mind that the script was around in the 80s and it just now is getting made. Can you talk about the story of how it was first written and how it just was able to stay alive, for lack of a better term, kind of resurrected now into a full-fledged movie? Because, I saw Emilio Estevez in the credits. I was like, is that the Emilio Estevez? Like, how many, you know, Emilio Estevezes could there be? But, I'd love to know the story of the script.
I mean, when I saw Emilio Estevez's name, when I found he was involved in it, I was like, obviously I was excited because obviously being, you know, a fan of the 80s, you can't help but be a fan of Emilio Estevez. So, no, I mean, what I think the story was, and again, I might be embellishing in detail slightly, I hope I'm not, because I can go off what other people tell me, but basically the film was written in the 80s, it was optioned by one studio, then another, and I think probably the writers probably made very good money off it as a film that was kept getting reoptioned over the best part of 40 years. It's probably a great earner, probably paid a few mortgages. But the frustration for the guys was it never got made, and I believe it came close to getting made like 3 times.
Okay.
So I know that at one point they said it was going to be Corey Feldman.
Who's going to direct it? Or
was going to be in it. He was going to be Max's character in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
Then when it almost got made in the 90s, it was going to be Macaulay Culkin.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Which would have been interesting. And then I can't remember who it was going to be the 3rd time, but I just think that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of like, and then you see Max do it in a totally different way. And I can't imagine anyone else doing it but Max. Because he's such an interesting, quirky, unique, nuanced, talented performer. I'm blowing smoke up your ass.
I'm staring at you like, keep going.
It's true. I do know what I feel like.
I'll
Sometimes
pay you
you do get that when someone brings a character to life, and that's not a pun because he is alive. But you do watch it and you go like, no one else could have done that. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's true. I remember like watching both of these guys and being like all the time, kind of watching Max, and we watch him on the screen and we go, he's so fucking good, like all the time, like he's so fucking, and then Hero just like hilarious all the way through, and it's just kind of, I thought when I met Hero that he was like going to be good at the comedy, but I didn't think that he was going to be as great as he is at the comedy. Again, I'm just blowing smoke at people's asses there, but I think both the guys did amazing. And again, it's the same thing, the film would be what it is without Max and Hero, in my honest opinion.
Thank you, Martin.
Yeah, things have a way of working out. It wasn't right for the 80s, it was right for the 90s, it was right for you guys to do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, so.
Yeah. I wonder when they were making it, like whether they were really leaning into the comedy, because I think actually like the I think that's probably where our take is probably it fits really well, because I think we really leaned into it, not taking it too seriously, and I think that's kind of where this movie shines in its heart and its funny bone.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to view the movie through, and I feel like this might be the wrong context, but through the zombie genre context, because people have been talking about how the zombie genre is so overdone, but this felt very fresh. So I'm wondering, was there any care taken to approaching this movie through the context of, being a zombie movie? Because if I were to categorize it, I wouldn't call it a zombie movie necessarily, because it doesn't fit the trope.
I agree
it's
with
not
you.
apocalyptic, But
I agree. I mean, Max and I don't agree on everything on the film. I know we get on great, but there's certain couple of things we still debate on. But that 100% I agree with, because the idea was, particularly with the zombies, what we did, the way that I approached it was that with the whole family of the undead, that it wasn't about them being undead. So I directed them in the same way as if they weren't the undead. And that was kind of our approach. They played it straight. Hero played his character in the same way if he wasn't undead, as did Ben, as did Susan, as did Zenobia, and I think that worked. That
Definitely.
kind of brought the humour out, brought the heart out, I think.
They're literally, the zombies are literally a device to show and display chosen family in this piece. That's literally it. I saw someone write, but surely Ashley Benson's character would have smelt that. They're not real.
But what are
real.
What are the rules? Because
There's no rules.
we should, exactly, there are no rules. Should Ben be eating pizza, or should he be eating human flesh? Should people be getting infected? Do they want? Do you know what I mean? It's like it literally happens to be the only zombies, or just people who have come back to life after being dead.
I also think that's why like zombie genre is so good and also so done, is because actually creative people and people that love horror and zombies, actually we don't know enough about what happens when your body decays when people come alive, because it doesn't happen. So you get to have creative freedom to make your own mind up about those things, but we're not taking it too seriously, it's a metaphor for family. Then the zombies are there as entertainment, because that's this film is hopefully entertaining. Now I say hopefully, fingers crossed.
No, absolutely was entertaining. It feels like there was a big sort of there were big metaphors in the movie. It felt like, and I feel like it's the kind of movie where you could read into it and you can put your own metaphors into it. But you mentioned the notion of chosen family. What were some of the intentional metaphors, if there were any, that were put into the movie? If any, or is it just the collective?
I don't even know if the themes are very metaphoric. I think that the zombies are more divisive than they are metaphoric.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they're a visual element to entertain, and rather than being like, oh, he's choosing. Do you know what I mean? And maybe that makes no sense, but
No, I get what you're saying. I think it's, you know, it's that thing we touched, you know, with Forrest Ball. It's kind of like, you know, you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. But Oliver does. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of something really interesting. I think that the film explores, and also, as I say, it's kind of like, for me, the way I look at it is that everything in the film is just the wrapping. It's the wrapping paper, and it's kind of like at the core of it, it's a relatable story about a young man who is experiencing grief. Like we are with him during the period of his grieving.
Yeah.
And it starts at one end and he comes out at the other. And I think that's what I like about it. It's absurd and it's bonkers in places, but ultimately at the heart of it, it's something that everybody at some point in their life comes into direct contact with, you know, and I think it makes Oliver very relatable.
Yeah, for sure.
Correct, Martin, correct.
Phew.
Successful. We agree on that.
Apparently there's a balance when it comes to horror comedy that's kind of... Apparently the right balance is 80% scary, 20% funny. I feel like you guys probably
Other way around.
that or the other way around.
Yeah.
Was there any intention to make... I mean, there were some moments that, you know, were definitely could be considered scary. But I feel like you were balancing comedy, horror, and heart. Like, it was very emotional. It was very sweet. I could see people crying at the end of it because, you know, there was a real beauty to it. Yeah. So I'm wondering how you were able to balance those three elements.
I think the key thing was just to not overthink it. That was kind of my approach. Was like, look, I see what the story is. I see what it needs to be.
Right.
And just focusing on the story, focusing on Oliver's journey. That was the key thing. I think.
I almost feel like I was talking about that, how when the different characters and what different people bring. I feel like sometimes you all need to bring a little bit of everything, and sometimes you each just bring each kind of percentage. And with Ben, Susan, myself, and Zenobia being free to just be funny, and we don't have such a character arc that's so nuanced that we need to focus on it. We're almost like an extension of Oliver, and therefore he brings the heart. Mark and his prosthetics team bring the horror, and we try and bring the comedy. And it's almost like that's kind of, I guess, how we approached it, rather than all being like, we all need to make sure we all hit comedy, we all hit horror, we all hit heart.
And I suppose if I played the horror, and I played the if I lent into the side of Oliver that we really actually didn't really want to lean into too much, I think that you wouldn't fall for him, and actually you really need to fall for him and feel for him and understand that actually what he's doing is just bizarre and shocking, and yes, it's scary and strange, but you're more like, what the hell's going on here? Like, this kid's clearly going through a lot, and then, you know, the fact that the zombies come alive is, you know, again, another it's more like a bizarre element, and it adds fun rather than it being like, oh, what's he going to do with all these dead bodies once he brings them home?
Yeah, that's very true. It's very true. That's testament, I think, to Max, is the fact that I certainly do. I'm not watching the film and I'm not like thinking, oh, he's dug these dead bodies up and suddenly where's Mitch? He's gone into the bedroom. Oi. Do you know? You don't at any point, you do not think anything weird's going to happen. Like it's
right.
Yeah, his kid's digging bodies up.
Yeah.
He's digging bodies up and taking them home. But at no point you still like him when he's doing it.
Yeah.
Which really is testament to Max's performance, I think.
Yeah. No, but I know exactly what you mean. It could be something. You could, it's like we talked about earlier. You can do it with a different lens that does make you really dislike it. Very easy on paper to think, why do we like this guy? What's he doing?
Yeah.
And I do think it's testament to how Max played him, because you don't think that at all.
No, you don't. I totally agree. Not at any point when we were shooting it, editing it, I watch it back, do I think that like he's trying to do anything nefarious? Weirdly, even though he's literally going to a graveyard and digging bodies up, his motivation at every single point is really, his motivation is pure. His motivation is, you know, and that's what's interesting.
It's about playing the innocence and the simplicity of like leaning into what he's told to do. Like Ashley says, "Oh, go drag him out there," and I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Is that fine? Can I do that? Like,
right.
So I think he's a listener, and he listens to instructions, and I think that's probably where you don't, those little moments like that, which are you know a bit signaling in some ways, but they actually relieve you of thinking that he's doing anything wrong, because he's just doing what he's told, right?
Yeah.
Of course he's going to do it. He's naive and he doesn't know.
You have such a good insight into why he's like that, because of how his his relationship with his mum was, and why he he is such a, as you say, listener and just follows orders.
Right. Well, I feel like he touched on an interesting concept, which is not overthinking things when it comes to this movie, when it comes to the tone, when it comes to the performance nuances. Yeah. And I feel like, would you say you were able to, both in the context of, directing the movie and acting in it, do you say it was fair that you mostly just relied on an intuition in terms of like finding the characters, finding the story, finding the tone, finding the balance between horror, heart, and humor? Is there a level of intuition that comes?
For me, it felt like purely intuition. There was even one moment where Mum was like, should we explore like doing this in American accent? And I was like, I'll sleep on it and let you know. And we'd always kind of agreed on English before, and like said the next day, like, this is going to mess everything up for me. As I said before, I often get a character and have to work it out, and we chat to friends and the director, and we have to literally pick and be like, okay, we're not going to go that way. We're going to do this. Yeah. And with Mitch, I was like, no, I'm 10 pages in, I know how I want to do this, and that's why it was intuition, it wasn't complicated for me at all. It was just it was fun. Like, I can't stress enough how I knew instantly this is just going to be fun playing this guy, and it was even more so than I anticipated.
Yeah, there was actually very few or zero conversations with any of the cast about kind of like, sometimes you have these conversations where it's like, but I really want to do it like this, and I'll be like, no, but that doesn't work. And I'm like, I want to do it like this, and I'll be like, but I don't want you to do it like that. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't work for my vision. And but none of those conversations happened. Like, all of the actors in this film, like across the board, are like, or everybody like instinctively very quickly knew what they wanted to do, which is great for me, because it's not my job to tell someone how to act. Like, I see, like, and listen, everyone approaches directing differently, but I find the approach of kind of like walking over to someone and showing them how to move their arms and how to do this and how to do that, I find it a very kind of, I'll be honest, I find it a condescending way to tell people what to do. It's like, it's like any job. Like, I was 16 years old, got a job in Pizza Hut, which we touched on last night, but I'm not telling that story, don't worry. You do any job, it's like someone coming up to you and saying, oh, can you like lift that tray of drinks higher or lower? It's like, you just do the job. Right. You hire someone to do the job. Right. And how they're going to do it, you do it. And it's like, to think that everything's subjective. So the way that I do anything is different. The way a different hero does it, or Max does it. And you trust all the guys to come on board and do it. Yeah. And they all did an amazing job. And I had very little to do. My only job really was, because they were all doing such unique and different things, just to ensure every time we were all just a little tweak here and there to make sure on the train was the track in the right direction. But otherwise, like, it was really down to all of them. I mean, the entire cast, I think, is great, and the supporting cast are fantastic. Every single one of the cast. I can't complain about a single one of them. I can't. I think they're all great.
I think with anything, when you're preparing to like lead a film and you have a lot of pressure and a lot of stuff to do, like my prep was quite heavy before we shot, in terms of like reading, watching, picking apart the script, and obviously we shoot out of order, so I have a little bit of a process where I pull it apart and put the script in order and stuff like that. And it was from doing that I decided that on every page I was writing the word listen. And so lots of the things that I decided that I wanted Oliver to have, I was going to have, and I was going to bring in terms of, the use of my voice, which again was, my voice is nothing like Oliver's, which you can obviously hear now. So the use of my voice, I worked on that a little bit with a vocal coach and an accent coach, and then leaning into being on set, what you have to do with all that prep and all that research is actually forget it and throw it away and let it permeate through being present. And my favorite actors do that, and like that's like something that is working for me right now in my process, and it doesn't work for every film, but I think for this one I just noted that on every page I was writing listen, and that's kind of was my main sort of thing that I was looking for every day, was to be surprised and to listen. I think that's what can kind of enable you to lift it off the page and make it nuanced, is not being, like Martin says, is overthinking too much what you're doing, because what can happen is you can prep and you can do all this stuff and you can make really firm decisions about your delivery, and then you'll meet someone like Hero for the first time, and then you'll do a scene with Hero and you're like, oh my god, Hero is not reading it like I've read Mitch, but I'm not playing Mitch. It's not my job to play Mitch. My job is to play Oliver, and I can only react to what I'm getting back. So you can't foresee that, because you've not met hero's Mitch, and actually
Do you find it often helps in a way though, because it does bring something even more
I love
unique
it.
And like, I always like when I'm
alleviates the pressure.
thrown off by how the person I was reading the lines with just to learn them was doing it.
No, but I find it alleviates the pressure of prep, because you can't expect someone to have the scene really cooking along all the way through unless they've met before. So you have to as a creative person, when you're on a set working with loads of different people, production designers, hair and makeup, you have to allow other creative people to do their jobs, and understand that yes, I am a vessel who's serving this story and serving this character, and I have to meet every element of it along the way. And that sounds like really profound and wanky, but that's literally the truth. So you are right in that sometimes you have to not overthink it, and sometimes it does require you to bring a lot of prep and then just forget it.
Yeah, but I feel like the notion of the creative process being prep and prep and prep and throw it all away so you can be present, so you don't rub up against somebody else's portrayal if it's not exactly the way you saw it in your own head. I feel like that's enormous, and I feel like that applies to directing, it applies to acting, it applies to writing. Just be present. And I feel like that's a huge notion to think about as creative.
Absolutely. And I think as well, on this film, it's kind of, for me, I have certain crew that I always now work with, and I trust them implicitly to, like, I know Håvard is just going to do what he said he's going to do. He's not going to change the plan. We've got a plan, he executes it. I don't need to check what he's doing. Sometimes I give him a little push, make him go a bit faster. And if he's listening to this, he'd be like, what do you mean? Why did you always say this about me?
Such a good impression, to be fair to you.
Yeah, it's
really good.
And,
really camp as well, like the way you like.
I made it a little camp, but I just needed that to commit to the performance. He's not camp at all. I don't know why I did that. But overall, it was kind of. But with this film, it was like the point I'm getting to, other than slandering Håvard, was
we love Håvard.
The cast were kind of like that for me. It was kind of like, not always do I work, and it's kind of like, okay, they're just going to get on and do it. It sometimes takes a lot more kind of shaping, so to speak. But I feel like everyone has hit the rhythm day one, and even I think all the characters, like, I mean, I particularly like Alex and Ahmed, who played the grave diggers. I think they're really good. Funny. And
honestly, I want to see like a TV show just about them, or a film just about them.
They really tickled me. The pair of them were so funny,
so good.
And like, it's kind of weird because like certain people you meet and you kind of like, there's just something about them that really tickles you. So like, Alex is like the nicest guy. He's great conversation, but like he has like a default setting of an angry face. but he's talking to you, but he's being really nice and funny, and then he goes back to angry face. And it's just he's naturally funny. Some people are naturally funny. Hamid was, and I think that everybody did great. I think that the way that Tallulah's character is so different to Oliver, but there's the relatability of two complete outsiders. I think that Jacob does a great job as a bully,
Jacob,
because he just doesn't as a human being, he would find it incapable to bully somebody because he's such a nice, sweet human being. But having someone who looks like that and is like that as the bully actually works really, really well, rather than being the atypical, like, big jock. And I think he did it, that's his first film, and I think he did such a great job.
He threw himself really into it.
I agree
wholeheartedly. And I just think, as well, like Nicola, who plays Tallulah's mum, I just think everyone, just like to give everyone a shout out, because I think that everyone does such a great job. And obviously, Heroes mentioned the family, they're all, I think they all do a brilliant job, the whole family, and Ben and Susan.
Ben and Susan are just like, they're just hilarious. They're just hilarious people. Like, both, obviously, Ben's a veteran of the comedy game, and Susan you can't talk to without laughing. She's just hilarious. Good casting.
We all know who I thought the best performance in the film was, don't we?
You thought yourself was the best. Your cameos.
I'll be honest, I think it is.
Okay.
Do you know what? How many Coca-Colas did you down?
I did 5.
Me and Hero sat here agreeing.
I downed 5 Coca-Colas.
It was funny, that, to be fair.
I thought I was going to vomit, I'll be honest. And I was like, my stomach was just like going like this. It was like 6 inches further out than it was at the start. And I was like, why am I drinking real Coke?
Which was your cameo?
The TV repairman.
TV repairman,
I'm such a comedian.
So memorable. He's like, who were you again in the film?
No,
I didn't know
man.
what you looked like at the time, to be fair.
I mean, I kind of don't look like me.
Yeah, you're a bit disguised. You got a hat and a head. Well, you're always wearing a hat. But you got the headphones and.
Yeah, we did a good job of making me look unattractive. Actually, it wasn't an easy job. Just kidding.
A lot of time in the chair for that one.
Yeah, a lot of time.
Well, guys, this is a whole lot of fun, and huge congrats on the movie. Is there anything we didn't touch on that would be worth getting into, or you feel like we did a thorough job?
So one thing to mention, we mentioned it earlier with like all the scenes where Max is doing, you know, his amazing performance, talking to Hero's character, and Hero's just sat there.
Yeah.
There was moments where I was watching the monitor, and I legitimately thought Hero was dead. Like, literally, you're looking at him, he's not breathing. Like most people that do, the rest of the family, you know, like any normal human being, you see the kind of when the bit where they're dead, the chest goes in and out, and you fix that in post.
Right.
Hero, you're looking, going, is he actually dead? Like, how is he?
Do you know what?
How is he not breathing?
I was really close to him as well, and I thought it was very easy to think you were dead because you were very still.
I'm glad. Thanks, guys. You know what's funny about that? I feel like a couple times I'll be watching TV with friends, anticipating this role coming up, and I just like, you know, you're kind of falling asleep, and I just give it a go, like trying to just regulate my breathing and not move, and I just hear like, bro, are you all right? Like, I'm just there, like, yeah, no, I'm fine, don't worry. And then also, thank you guys, but I had 2 weeks, I had the easiest ease into a job, because sometimes you step on first day and you're like, oh God, I've got a tough scene, I need to meet everyone, I don't know anyone's names yet, I need to, you know. I had 2 weeks of not doing anything at all, like just playing dead. Almost to the point where by the time I had to talk, I was bricking it. But
I think there's almost a feeling of guilt. I think Max is just like
doing everything, literally moving me.
Unbelievable performance. Hero just sat there. It was almost like a guilt of like, should I be doing something?
Yeah.
You know, it was like that was funny.
Yeah.
Really nice. Well, guys, this was a whole lot of fun. I love the movie. Huge congratulations. Any sequel potential? Bride of the Loneliest Boy in the World.
Oh God, that would be hilarious, wouldn't it?
What would happen? What would happen in the sequel?
The most popular boy in the world.
Hey, that's how we should end this. We should end this by what would each of our pitches be for the sequel.
That's a good idea.
That's a good idea. I'll go last so I can think about it.
How do we bring back the family twice? Or like, you know.
You have to though. That's the thing. Would you have to? I personally wouldn't want to work with any of you.
I think it's got to be something like it's got to be a big twist. Like Chloe takes Oliver back to her house, and you realise that.
Oh,
like,
I've got a good one. Sorry,
something about her house is not quite right, and like maybe she's a witch or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think we take a like Truman Show approach, and you check that all the zombies are actually just actors with makeup on, and everything's been orchestrated to make Oliver do everything he's done, and when Ashley says dig him up, it's all a plan, and we zoom out and we realise this was society's plan to help this one lonely boy.
Okay, that's good.
That's really good.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Are you directing it? Sorry, man.
No, please.
I mean, I'm down. Listen, I think he should act in it more, and I'll direct it.
You should be the big boss at the TV.
Yeah. In the moon or whatever.
Yeah, no, I'm down for that. I've got one. You can have it. I would call it this idea of Oliver in the second one. The second one starts and Oliver is dead. So Oliver has died, but he has to come back to help Tallulah's character, and he brings back some of the family. Not Hero. He brings back
not
Hero.
Well, you can't because I'm directing and I don't have time to do anything else. So.
But you can have a cameo.
No, I'll do one cameo quickly.
Yeah.
TV repairman. I think they're all pretty shit concepts apart from Heroes. I mean, like mine.
How about TV repairman? That's what the second one is.
No, but it would kind of work, the Truman Show one, if the TV repairman ended up being the big TV exec boss.
Yeah, there you go.
That is good.
I just want to see the dog come back. I loved the little dead dachshund. That was hilarious.
Yeah, that was. That was my dog at the start of the film, and then we photographed her, and the model was based on her.
Oh, cute.
Yeah. So that was.
It got a big laugh at the premiere. The shot of the dog on the sofa.
The dog falls off the sofa.
Yeah, when Oliver puts it on the sofa, and then again when it like that got some massive laughs.
Yeah, no, it was that stuff was on. I'm glad we did it. I think the VFX guys did a great job.
I think that's really like it's quite hard to do comedy like visually without any. It's like that's funny with no dialogue, no line. It's just like such a simple concept that sometimes that comedy can be the best.
Yeah. Well, awesome, guys! Whole lot of fun. Congrats again. Loved the movie, and all you listening, check it out. It comes out on today, right? October 14th.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, today.
October 18th on VOD.
15th. Oh, okay. 18th on VOD. It's in theaters now.
Yeah.
Check it out on big screen if you can. It is worth it. Check out Loneliest Boy in the World. All right, here as always are some key takeaways from this conversation with Martin, Max, and Hero. Number 1, always play it straight. The Loneliest Boy in the World features an ensemble cast of sentient zombies, but still, the movie manages to provide a deeply moving experience. Despite the absurdity of the situation, the actors play the role straight and take it seriously, which helps the movie reach the viewer on an emotional level. A lot of horror movies are in danger of becoming campy, which can be a kiss of death if you want any sort of emotional resonance. The way to avoid that is to have your actors treat the material with seriousness, regardless of how absurd the situations may be. Number 2, don't overthink it. When I asked Martin very analytically how he balanced the tones of horror, humor, and heart, he told me straight up that he basically just did it and didn't overthink it. And it worked. The movie has a very unique tone that's entirely its own. There are all sorts of exercises, archetypes, theories, and rules about how specific genres should be executed. But do we really need all of that? Yes, it's important to be aware of all of these rules, but at the end of the day, directors need to rely on their own creative intuition, which brings me to my next point. Number 3, learn all you can, then throw it away. In an acting context, Max was talking about how he'd spend countless hours reviewing material for a role and then throw it all away and let the material permeate through him naturally on the day. This concept applies to writing, directing, acting, just about any creative endeavor, and it comes down to being present and working with what's in front of you. Being over-analytical or over-attached to preconceived notions of things can be detrimental in any creative pursuit. Creative endeavors rely on presence, so learn all you can, throw it away, and let it emerge naturally. Doing this leads to more authentic, natural, ultimately more cohesive work. Anyway, guys, thank you as always for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, why not share it with your friends and family on social media? Don't forget to follow the show on Instagram at I'm Nick Taylor, that's I am Nick Taylor, and on Twitter at the same handle. And don't forget to check out The Loneliest Boy in the World, now streaming on demand. Thanks again for listening to the Nick Taylor Horror Show.